The Rebbe of the Rebbe to learn Hilchos Beis Abchira in the days Ben Metzorim. We have the honor today to have a Rosh in German. Erstens geben Bruchim Aboim to Rav Benimin Lizaak. It's going to be a melamed in our community. Das soll helfen, so haben als Loch in alle deine Unionen und then give us some insight into Hilchos Beis Abchira. The Rebbe of the Rebbe to give Tzedakah B'tzibur. Please, everybody give Tzedakah B'tzibur. Harav Benimin, bevakasha.
Shkiyach. So it says in the Rambam, in Hechos Beis Bechira, in Paraches, the Rambam speaks about the Shemim and the Beis HaMikdash. And the Rambam says in Halacha Daled, that says the Kainim would guard in Gimel Makamis in 3 places, and the Levim would guard in Chalaf Alamakim in 21 places. And it says, where would the Kainim guard? They said the Kainim would guard in the Beis Haftinas, the Beis Nitzis, and the Beis HaMekid. So there's a discussion of amongst people, like the Smag, and he says over there that it seems from the Rambam, the Kayanim guarded in a separate place than the Levim. The Kayanim guarded in 3 places, and the Levim guarded in another 21 places. The Smag says no, that the Kayanim and the Levim in those 3 spots, the Kayanim are guarding in the inside of those areas, and the Levim were guarding the outside, or in the Beis HaNitzitz, where it was the double floor, the Kayanim were on the top and the Levim were on the bottom. And if you look further on in the Rambam in Halacha, he speaks more details about the Kayanim, the Shmiras of the Kayanim. And he mentions over there that one of the spots where the Kayanim were guarded was in the Beis HaMekid. And Beis HaMekid is goes after, because there was a fire, there's a furnace in the room. After the Kayanim would go to the mikveh to warm them up. So the word Mekid comes from that notion of a furnace, of a fire that was there to keep them warm. And it says over there at the end of the Halacha Hey, it says over there that in the Beis HaMekid there was a place where the Kayanim would sleep. And it says over there that the Zikni Beis Av Sha'oisa Hayim Hayeshinim Sham Maftaches Hazar B'Yadim, that the elders of the Beis Av, every week there was a different Beis Av whose job was for that week in the year amongst the Chavdal Shemar Shmaris, and when it was their week, there was their time to serve in the Beis HaMikdash during that week. The Zikna Beis Av, they would sleep over there, and they had the keys of the Zara B'Yadim in their hand. And also in Mesechtes Midas, it mentions over there that over there also that the Zikni Beis Av would sleep over there in the Beis HaMekid, and they had the keys for the Azar in their hand. But if he brings down also in Mesechtes Midas, it says over there that there was also a place, a Makom Shal Amal Amal, there was an area where they had under the tile, where they had the shashalas on a chain, where the keys were for the Azara, to open up the doors, the gates of the Beis HaMekid. So if you look in the halach, he mentions over there that on one hand that says in that the Zikna Beis Av, that they were sleeping over there in the Beis HaMekid, and it says that the keys of the Azara were in their hand. So was it under the floor, or was it in their hand? So the Pharisee Yisrael explains that it was Birushusan, it was in the possession, which means in their hands, which means it was in their possession, even when it was under the floor, it was in the area, therefore it was in the Rishus, and that's what it means that the keys of the Azar were in their hand. And further on in Hilchos Beis Bechira and Halacha Vav, the Rambam mentions regarding the Kainim who would guard in the Beis HaMekid. It says over there that the Kainim, when they were guarding the Beis HaMekid, it says that they would sleep. When they would sleep in the Beis HaMekid, they were not allowed to sleep wearing their clothes, the big dekuna. Rather, they had to fold them and place them keneged rishayim near the head. So Rashi Masechtas Yuma, he explains the reason why they were not allowed to wear the big dekuna when they were sleeping was because Shema Yefyach Behen. And the Derech HaChachma says, the clothes of the Kainim where it had to be in a certain level of a higher level. Therefore, the clothes should not be used for sleeping. And the Rambam Perish Mishnah is brought down in the Kevsa Mishnah that one of the garments on the Bigdei Kahuna was the avneit, and the avneit had a mixture of shatnez in it. Therefore, when he was sleeping, he was not allowed to have it under him in case it would go on him, and it would be issue of wearing shatnez when he's sleeping. Even the Kevsa Mishnah says, however, even though the Kohen would wear these clothes throughout their Avodah, they were also allowed to wear the Bigdei Kahuna even when they were not b'shas Avodah, even while wearing the avneit. And so how come when they're sleeping they're not allowed to? He explains is that only when they're wearing the Bigdei Kahuna b'derech levusha, when he's wearing the clothes in the derech of way of wearing it, then it's not an issue of having shatnez on it when he's wearing it, even though he's not b'shas Avodah at the moment. But when he's sleeping, that is an issue. And it's mentioned over here that the kohanim, when they would guard the base of Mikid, some of them would sleep on the floor. And the reason was, the Derech Chachma explains that the reason they would sleep on the floor is like a shamer, a guard for a king. It shows how he was ready any moment to do the Aveda. And same thing over here, the Kohen shows that he is ready any moment to do his Aveda. So he's sleeping on the floor, shows that at any moment he could be ready to do the Aveda of Hashem in the Beis HaMikdash. So we just mentioned over here in the Halacha Vav, the Rambam says that the Kohanim would sleep. But if you look further on in the Rambam, in Halacha Yud, and he is also connected to today's Rambam, where it speaks about there was 15 Memunim in the Beis HaMikdash. And one of the Memunim in the Beis HaMikdash was the Ish HaBayis. He would go around to make sure all the Shemim were doing their job in the guarding. And the Rambam mentions that he would go over to each mishmer throughout the night, and he had in his hand the avukis, the lukas tafanov, and v'chol mishmer sheni emid, and if any mishmer, any guard would not stand, the ish habayis would tell him shalom alecha, would see if he was awake or not, and if you realize he was sleeping, chivte makle, you would hit him with a stick. And it mentions later on, Rishus Hayal L'Sleif Es Ksusei. And the Ish HaBayis, he had permission even to burn the clothes of the Leviim until the people would say in Yerushalayim, what's the curl that they hear in the Azara? And they would say, it's the curl ben Levi Leika. It's a voice of the Levi who's getting Leika, and his Begadav Nesafim, and his clothes are being burnt because he's sleeping on his mishmar. So the Rosh has a question. We just mentioned Rachavav that the Kohanim, even when they were guarding, they would sleep in the Beis HaMikdash. So how come over here we mention Halacha Yod when it speaks about Ish HaBayis? He would go around to make sure that the Kohanim were not sleeping. So some say that Shemer, this idea of that you're not allowed to sleep was only for Leviim and not for Kohanim. But the Mishnah Melech. The Mishnah Melech says even the Kohanim themselves were not allowed to sleep. However, they had a Zman Kvuah. There was a Zman Kvuah where the Kohanim were allowed to sleep, and anything beyond that, the Ish HaBayis had permission to make sure he was doing his job of Shemer in the Beis HaMikdash. And Mishnah Melech also gives a different explanation. He says that since there was not just one Kohanim, there was many Kohanim who were Shemer there, and therefore they would take turns. Some Kohanim were allowed to sleep, and some Kohanim had to be ready to do their Shemer in the Beis HaMikdash. Okay, we can ask a general question on this whole concept of Ish HaBayis. How is he allowed to go ahead to do this thing to the Shemim, to even have to get a rishus to burn his clothes? There's halacha, there's a vera to Israelite tashkes, Baal tashkes. You're not allowed to go ahead and destroy things for no reason. So the Rosh answers that he says, since he wasn't doing his job, so therefore it's hefker based on hefker. That once he wasn't using his he was doing what he's supposed to do. Based on his mafker everything in his Issa Bal Tashchis. But according to Alter Rebbe and Shulchan Aruch, and then he asks this question, but even there's Issa Bal Tashchis, even by Hefker, even something that's Hefker, you're not allowed to go ahead and destroy it. So Ezra's Kainim explain that just like a man is allowed to go in his house, he's allowed to shaver kelim, he's allowed to break kelim in order to bring fear in the home, in order to zaz his baseline, to get people waking up, to make sure it's straight in home. Therefore, same thing over here, he's allowed to. The Ish HaBayis had permission to go ahead to make sure that the Kayanim and Levim were doing their job to Shem the Beis Mikdash in order to nazarize them to go ahead and make sure that they're guarding, and therefore he's allowed to destroy the clothes, even to burn them. However, the Rebbe explains in a Sicha and a Chelik Ches that when is kilko, when you're allowed to ruin something, only when it's almanas l'sakin, when you're going ahead to fix it. And for example, when someone is fasting in order to do teshuvah, even though it's bringing tzar to tzar, he's bringing pain to his body when he's fasting, so he's allowed to do that because it's bringing good out of it. He's doing teshuvah. Same thing over here. This is bringing a kilkol amanas l'sakin. Over here, that you go around to make sure everyone was doing their shemir and the Beis Hamikdash. Therefore, he was allowed to, because it was amanas l'sakin, in order to make sure that it was good to come out of it, that they were doing what they're supposed to do in the Beis Hamikdash. And the Rebbe brings in a Sicha and Shabbos Parshas and Devarim and Toshemem. He says over there also, you have the same question also regarding the Beis Hamikdash in general. We know Magdav Rav Yaakov Chukom Mishpat Yisrael, that whatever Hashem gives the mitzvahs for us, Hashem also fulfills the mitzvahs. So therefore, this Isra Tashchis, how could Hashem go ahead and destroy the Beis Hamikdash? This itself is not following how is this following the mitzvahs, the same thing he gave to us? And the same question he asks also the Isra Leisasa, you're not allowed to go ahead and destroy any part of the Beis Hamikdash. So how's Hashem fulfilling those mitzvahs? And Hashem could have, if Hashem wanted to destroy the Beis Hamikdash, Hashem could have done what he did to the Mishkan and to the Aron, to the Kelim, where he was the gainers them. Why did he have to go ahead and destroy the Beis Hamikdash? So the Rebbe explains, it's about an Eichal Kol Hashem Chamasei, that Hashem sprouted his chema on the Eitzim, on the wood and the stone of the Beis Hamikdash, instead of bringing his chema on the Bnei Yisrael. That this itself was considered like a Kilkol Manas Latakin, where Hashem is destroying the stones of the Beis Hamikdash, and instead of going ahead and doing anything to the Yidden. And the Rebbe connects it to the halacha on Shabbos, where kol makaklim b'turin, that on Shabbos, if you mekakl something, you're pater. On the other hand, where if you do kilko for amanas, for a mace, or for yarachima, where there you're ruining something in order to let out your steam, then it's considered kilko amanas l'saki, and then there's no isser, because it's idea of binyan. And the same thing over here, that connects it over the Beis Hamikdash, that since it was a kilkol amanas l'sakin, it was ordered to rebuild, it was ordered to not destroy, not to hurt the Yidden, but destroying the Beis Hamikdash instead. So therefore, it's not considered Bal Tashchis. But still, how do you answer the question of Laisasim? You're not allowed to destroy any part of the Beis Hamikdash. So that connects it to what it says in Yaakov Shemini regarding how Yavi Aryeh, the Malz Aryeh, that Hashem came in the Malz Aryeh in the month of Av, and Nebuchadnezzar came in the month of Av and destroyed the Beis Hamikdash, and it says, well there, Amanas, Yavi Aryeh, that Hashem should come, rebuild the Beis Hamikdash. And it says this, that the fact that it says Amanas shows that this whole destruction wasn't the destruction, the Shem destruction, was a Nitzas L'Shem Binyan. It was in order to rebuild the Beis Hamikdash. Since the destruction was to rebuild the Beis Hamikdash, it's not considered destroying the part of the Beis Hamikdash, because this destruction was like building a shul or building a Beis Hamikdash, not only to rebuild the Beis Hamikdash, but the Beis Hamikdash should be built not like the first and second Beis Hamikdash, but it was built Abarnash. But the third Beis Hamikdash was built through Hashem, where it's a binyan nitzchi, and and it should build a further Beis Hamikdash. Here remain amen.
Will be a siyum mesechta. Will be a siyum mesechta.